I was born in London, but we moved to Delhi very soon after. Had a slight bit of nursery in London, but mostly in Delhi till the age of 10. And then I moved back to London at the age of 10. Um, I think the upbringing in Delhi was very privileged. It was one of the best schools in Delhi. The house we lived in, everything. I mean, I had a very happy childhood, and there was more pressure because there's a bit of a rat race in Delhi. So there was more pressure to do well in everything, but then I didn't really mind that so much. But when I came here, we sort of had to start afresh. So it was completely different. We went to living in Wembley, which wasn't such an affluent area, in a small apartment, and I went to a state school. And my parents were very busy, setting up life in a new country. So I think the upbringing then was different in the sense that there wasn't as much attention and privilege. And
2006-ish?
Yeah, 2005 I think it was.
2005. And how did it feel when you first came to the UK then? How were you feeling?
Very, very odd. Firstly, I didn't know that we were moving for good. I thought we were just visiting, because we used to come every summer anyway. So I wasn't really sure what was happening, and it was very, very, very difficult. Going to new school, I had an Indian accent, so I was made fun of at first. And school and home life were very, very difficult from that moment on.
What kind of things do you think were different from, other boys maybe who were around you, or?
Well, firstly, there were only 12 girls in a class of 35 students, and there were just less girls in school, which I found a bit odd, but I thought perhaps people don't prioritize the girls' education as much.
Here
in India. And I remember it was my mum who really pushed for me to go to a good school, because the general opinion was that it doesn't really matter what the standard of her education is, because I also was, it was just expected that I'd get married into a wealthy family and I have kids, and I wouldn't really have a career. So I think my mum, though, wanted us to have a good education, so she pushed for me to go to that school, which was a great, great school. And yeah, in terms of not being a boy, you felt that constantly. I think subconsciously, as a girl, you just know that in India people are not as happy if they have a girl.
Is strictly prohibited in India, but it's still widespread, Dr. Rock says. It's just a question of money. Angel, who's just 6 days old, is in many ways lucky to be alive. Her parents didn't know her gender until she was born. Her grandmother had hoped for a boy. As a mother of 6 girls, she suffered under social pressure until the birth of her 7th child, a boy.
As opposed to if they have a boy. And I was very much treated like a boy from the start. I remember when I was little, I thought I was a boy, and very quote unquote tomboyish, not really comfortable with being a girl. and wearing skirts and dresses, or what's typically associated with being a girl, because I think for whatever reason I was very much treated like a boy, so that became my personality, and I didn't really like the fact that I was a girl. No, it was different in the UK. It was a different vibe. I felt like girls were more viewed as equals. And the girls here were very much thinking about careers. But the one difference that remained was the pressure of beauty on women. So that was in both countries. Like, you had to look good.
सीढ़ी लगाकर बात करना पड़ेगा आपकी राजेश्वरी को हमारे लड़के से.
And being feminine was more attractive than not being. So I kind of had to change my personality a little bit because what was attractive to men was being this very gentle, almost docile, slightly dumber, long hair, pretty, skinny, all of these terms. And if you weren't that, then no men would be attracted to you. That was the vibe I got.
How much in control of your decisions overall do you think you've had and now kind of have?
I think extremely little control until the age of 18. I think my father especially dictated a lot of what my decisions were, and I was very easily swayed, and his validation mattered so much. So it was more what would make him happy as opposed to what would make me happy. And then when I went to university, it was the first time I was independent, not living at home. And slowly I started to realize that that was happening, and there were certain decisions I wanted to take that would make me happy, but they didn't make my parents happy. And I had to fight a lot, sometimes rebel, try to make them see things from my perspective, and still there wasn't a lot of control, because if you did something that they didn't agree with, then you would be met with lots of arguments or the silent treatment, or they were just not happy. So the atmosphere was always disjointed, unless you were in line with those cultural expectations. So that took ages, but finally, after years of conversations and trying to get them to see, and just growing up, they became more accepting, and they said, it's your life, you can do whatever you want with it. So that took a long time, and even still I don't feel like I have full control, but I'm definitely able to take decisions, more decisions than I previously could.
प्लीज बाबूजी मुझे 1 महीना दे दीजिए प्लीज जा जी ले अपनी जिंदगी
Freedom I have now, my white friends had already when they were about 15 or 16. So they've had it for the majority of their life. Like, as long as you're not, as long as you're not in harm, you can do whatever you like. But that was definitely not the case. Having Indian parents, there was a sense of overprotectiveness, constantly being called to be asked where you are, what time you're getting back, what time you're leaving. Are you staying the night? You know you're not allowed to do that. come back home, a lot of questions. And I would notice my white friends weren't being called by their parents, not even once. Maybe a text to ask, like, are you safe or are you okay? But it wasn't like, if you had said a time but you were later than that time, it would be like a disaster. But, you know, there was no flexibility.
If you had complete free will in like an idealist world or whatever, because I know like for every single person, not just, no matter what culture, whatever, like you have different freedoms, I think. So in your situation, if you had complete free will, how would you live your life? And yeah, how would you live your life firstly?
I think a lot of free will is intertwined with financial independence.
It ain't a man's world, no more sugar and spice. It's a she thing, it's all in me. I can be anything that I want.
That is the main thing that gives you that control or ability to steer your life in the direction you want to. But if you're dependent on someone else, you can't really do that. So if I did have the money I need to create my own life, then I would live by myself in an apartment, so I could come and go as I pleased, only with people that actually add something positive to my life.
Do you ever feel that women from South Asian background that are living in the UK and women who are like white English or white are like different, and in what kind of ways do you see, sort of just in general?
I think there's a lot of sexual guilt placed on Asian women.
संजना तू इतने दिन उसके साथ घूमी फिरी, क्या कुछ ऐसा कुछ नहीं मम्मी, कुछ नहीं, तो फिर प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
A lot of restrictions, so I think it's changing a lot now, but there is this, even Asian parents in the UK, like if I have Asian friends, their parents would never be accepting of them having had sex before marriage, or several boyfriends, or staying the night, or, you know, if it wasn't a serious relationship, it was just casual. But I feel like my white friends, they themselves feel less guilt about casual sexual encounters. They don't place, you know, they're not counting, or if they are counting the number of sexual partners, they're not thinking that makes them a bad person or it makes them a certain way. They're not judging their character, basically. But I think women's characters being judged based on their romantic and sexual life is still very prominent in Asian women. Cons? Yeah, not having the same sort of freedoms, expectations, having a dual identity, you know, like, and it's two completely different cultures. You have to keep both in mind. You talk to your family, you come home and you're getting a different perspective of life. You talk to your friends and you're getting the opposite perspective, and the boundaries become very blurred, and you have these almost two women living inside you and you're constantly trying to reconcile the two, trying to find a balance that you can sit comfortably with whilst, you know, taking what works for you from both cultures. But to do that takes a lot of soul searching and a lot of like experience.
So much time.
Yeah, it takes years and reflection, and then you decide like, okay, this is what I want to take from this culture, and this is what I want to take from that culture, and that's what's going to work for me. But that is not an overnight thing at all.
Yeah. What empowers you as a woman?
My friends, my female friends,
Same.
they're very, very strong women. My mum, very resilient. My sister doesn't take any nonsense from anyone. My grandmother as well, who says like, always say you're the best. Don't believe, you know, don't let anyone else get you down, because, and her self-confidence is very high, whereas I have a tendency to put myself down a lot. So I think it's the women in my life that empower me to be a good woman.